to day 15 of our literary essay unit. We are approaching the end of Bend 2, so much of the work we do today is going to be on revision. But before I let you go and revise, I want to go over some things that I've seen in the work that I've read so far. Okay, so today's goal is to reread our drafts and fill any gaps we find. So the gap here, if you look at the picture here, you see mind the gap, right? And this gap refers to the space between the subway car and the subway platform, right? So if you fall down there, you're in big trouble. If you have gaps in your essays, your reader is in big trouble because they're going to get lost and your message will not be conveyed. Okay, so a gap in an essay is a place where you haven't highlighted the most applicable part of a scene for your evidence, or a place where you haven't explained your thinking well enough. And this usually happens when you're analyzing evidence. Okay, so what I want to show you today is a before and after paragraph where the gaps have been filled with meaningful content. So we're going to follow these instructions here, these guiding questions. So when you go back and you read your paragraphs today, you're going to ask yourself, what's the main point of my paragraph? And does the support, does my elaboration, do the stories, examples, do the quotes, does that support clearly connect to the main point of the paragraph? And then specifically with your quotes, does the quote bring that piece of support to life? So does it really show the reader what you're saying, or is it still telling them? To start us off, we're going to look at a piece of student work. This is a student named Julia, and she wrote an essay about Thank You, Ma'am. Okay, and I think some of you have read it. Thank You, Ma'am is a story about Roger, who he mugs Mrs. Jones, and she ends up bringing him home and kind of giving him a second chance. Okay, so I'll read the paragraph one time for you. In the beginning of the story, Roger mugs Mrs. Jones, or tries to mug her. It's late at night, and Roger ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. Most people would run away if someone did that to them. Mrs. Jones turned around and kicked him right square in the blue jean sitter. This doesn't seem like respect, but actually, it kind of is. She treats him like he's her son, even though she doesn't know him and he just tried to rob her. Okay, so we're going to use these questions I have here. What's the main point of the paragraph? Okay, so looking at this, if I ask what's the main point, I know how paragraphs normally work, so I'm expecting the main point to be in the beginning, but I just don't see it. Okay, so I don't know what the author is trying to convey in this paragraph. There's no clear topic sentence, there's no main idea. It sounds like it's a summary of what happened in the story. But we know that writing a summary can be a part of a paragraph, but it doesn't constitute an entire paragraph. Okay, so that's a gap we see, right? What's the paragraph really about? Okay, we don't know in this example right now. Okay, now we have the quote here. It is late at night, and Roger ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. Okay, so again, this just sounds like they took a piece of the text and put it in here. And the issue is that we don't know what the paragraph's really about. So the quote that's here doesn't connect to anything. It doesn't make anything clearer. And that causes a problem for me as the reader. Okay, Most people would run away. Mrs. Jones turned and kicked. So again, it's just, I feel like because I don't know what the paragraph's really about, it's just kind of a summary. The author's telling me what happened in the story. Okay. So there are many gaps here. And what I would write on the side here is no main idea, and it's not clear what the quotes actually show. So what's the author using the quotes for? It's hard to figure that out. Okay, so this student, Julia, she went through this, she analyzed it, asked herself the same questions, and she's come up with another draft of that paragraph. Okay. In the beginning of the story, Roger mugs Mrs. Jones, or tries to mug her, but this violent act is not enough to scare this woman away from helping the boy and showing him respect. It's late at night, and Roger ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. Most people would run away if someone did that to them. Mrs. Jones turned around and kicked him right square in the blue jeans sitter. This doesn't seem like respect, but actually it kinda is. Instead of treating Roger like a criminal, when he actually is here, she holds him so she can talk to him and teach him a lesson. She treats him like he's her son, even though she doesn't know him and he just tried to rob her. Okay, so Julie has added quite a bit to this paragraph, and my first reaction is that it's much better. And I'll explain to you why it's better. So what jumps out at me right away is this line here. Okay, but this violent act is not enough to scare this woman away from helping the boy and showing him respect. So this is the main idea of the paragraph. When I read this, I feel like I know what the author is trying to show me here. She's trying to show me that Mrs. Jones is not scared of violence. Okay? She's trying to show me that in a situation where other people might be real scared, she's not. And even though she is being robbed, she teaches this boy a lesson. Right? So keep this sentence in mind, because what it does is it kind of breathes life into this quote. Okay, so it's late at night and Roger ran up behind her and tried to snatch her purse. So this description of what happened, okay, now it's not part of a summary so much. What it does now, it shows me how this was a dangerous situation. Okay, so in my head I can imagine walking down the street late at night and hearing footprints or footsteps quickly coming up behind me. Right? And that's a scary situation for anyone. But what we see is that Mrs. Jones isn't scared. Okay, and this tells us a lot about her, and it shows us it's a clear example of her not being afraid. Okay, which is the goal of this paragraph. Okay. Also, another line that jumps out at me down here, instead of treating like a Roger like a criminal, she holds him so she can talk to him and teach him a lesson. But what this does, this explains the significance of the events that we just heard about. Okay, so this tells us why what she did was important. Okay, so the goal of the paragraph is to show that Miss Jones isn't scared. Okay, and that she tries to help him. And that's what these two quotes do. But without that main point being at the top of the paragraph, these quotes don't make much sense. Okay, so I saw this kind of thing a lot yesterday when I was looking through your drafts. Okay, and in the conferences I had, one of the things I said quite often was, what's the point of this paragraph? What's the purpose of it in your essay? What are you trying to do in this paragraph? Okay, so what I want to stress to you is that your examples, your stories, your quotes, they may be great on their own, okay? But to make sense in a paragraph, the purpose of that paragraph needs to be clear. Okay, so when you get into your essays today, that's what I want you to look at. Okay, I want you to use these guidelines and make sure that each paragraph has a clear purpose, and that way the evidence you use will be valuable and understandable for the reader. So as you work today, I want to refer you back to the revision checklist from days 13 and 12. Okay, you can look back through there. You also have the grade 5 and 6 checklist. So if you finish a draft, you can pull that out and go through and look line by line. Ask yourself if you're doing the things in the checklist. So I'll be going through the roster today, trying to talk to as many of you as I can. If you want to request the conference, just send a message and say, Mr. Rago, I'd like to talk. I'd like to talk about my essay, and I will open up a chat with you, and we can look at your essay together. So good luck, and I'll see you inside your work.